Recording. Okay, so here we are. We're going to continue a little bit on our triangles. Here's an example of what we did last week. And further to a question that we had, these are just as a comparison, these are size 10 beads of delicas. These are size 11. So you can see if you could do this in any color or any size bead, it'll be proportionally larger or smaller. So whatever you've done in 11s, you can do in 10s, or likewise you can do in 15s. So today, what I'd like to do is take you through the process of joining triangles. And I've got a bunch here. I had made them for another use. So I do have 4 of them here. And I still have the fire line attached. Let me focus on this. Okay. So we did have a question, first of all, about centering. So here's a triangle. Not exactly the most exciting. However, I was making them for a kaleidocycle. And I need to grab a needle here. So I'm just going to convert this quickly into an earring. I'm not going to put a point row on this because what I'll do is I'll take it apart for something else. So to convert this into an earring, as you can see, my thread is coming out one side. I will do a loop of beads in white. And also, if we are doing something like a tree or something like that, and you want to put a topper bead in it, there, just a 4mm bead. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to put your topper bead or any kind of a focal bead on there, and then you can create your loop. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I like odd numbers, so 5 will give you a very small loop like that. If you want a larger loop, just add a couple more. That's 7 beads. So I'm going to go back down through this 4mm bead and into the bead beside where my thread is coming out. And that's how you can center a loop. I would probably go through this loop again just to help make it centered, or make it round. But that's an explanation. If you have done something, or if you've added the point, let's see if I can sort of give that impression. Okay, so if you are working with a point like that, I'm just going to work my thread back around like that. Okay, so if you are working with a point, you're going to come through the point. You may or may not want to use a piece like this. That'll make it a little bit more wobbly. But what you can do now is just pick up that odd number of beads and go into the other side of that point bead. And there is your loop. You can go through that again if you want, and then you would bury your thread. Okay, so that's 2 ways of creating a loop on your triangle. Okay, so let me just back this off. Pull this back. There we go. Okay, so as I say, I do have completed triangles. This has not got its point row on it yet. I am going to do the point row in red just so you see a little bit better what is happening. I'm just going to put away these white beads first that I pulled out. So for something like if you want to join triangles together, depending on, if you want to create something like that, to join them, you're going to do your point row around your first triangle. Let me read. Okay, so I'm going to use some red beads here for good contrast. Red, white, and black I really like anyway. So a point row, you put one bead in the point, and then you do that all the way around. Okay. So I literally am just stitching all the way around. Making sure that my thread doesn't catch on any beads that are sticking up or sticking outy. Okay, again, one bead in the corner. Okay. This is the part where it's like watching paint dry. Just undo that. And one of the things you may have discovered about the delicate beads, you can actually feel them click into place.
Sorry, your hands are a little bit out of the camera.
I'm sorry?
Like your hands, when you sew it, it's not on camera.
Oh, okay. Let me back off a little bit, then you'll be able to see better.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Okay, so we're almost all the way around. Okay, last bead. So there is my point row. I can go ahead and bury this thread now. I'm going to go through this first red bead. And then I'm just going to go into the beads and bury my thread. I'm not too worried about, things coming apart. This is a demonstration piece. So I won't do as much burying of the thread. I'm told I mispronounced that word. It's burying. That's my Winnipeg accent, my twang coming out, I guess. Okay. I'm just going to change direction. And bury it in a few more beads. This is where if you find it's really too tight to get through the beads, go into a thinner needle and that will it'll take you through the beads a little bit better. Okay, so that is buried. I'm just going to cut this. Okay, so now I have another triangle. Just undo the thread. This thread is a little bit shorter, but that's okay. I'm going to rethread that. So now that I have two pieces here, the point row and this row actually will fit together like a zipper. Let me zoom in a little bit just so you see that a little bit better. Focus on that. and they literally fit together like a zipper, just like that. So first thing I'm going to do, I need to get my bead over there. So I'm going to add 1 point in the corner. Okay. And now I'm going to line these up just like that. And you can see how the red is just going into the spaces of the other bead. So this is the one that I'm adding at the back. I could actually, let me switch them around so you can see. So the one I'm adding is in the front. Just like that. So I'm coming out of the sticky uppy bead on the front. I'm going to go into the sticky uppy bead, the next one on the back, which happens to be the point row. And I'm going to go back and forth between all of my sticky uppy beads. Just like that. This is called zipping it together. And as you can see, they fit together just like a zipper. I'm not pulling too tight yet. I will tighten this up when I straighten it around. But I'm literally just going between one and the other. Ouch, there.
That's using the tail?
Pardon?
Is that using the tail from the?
I'm using the existing thread that was left on the previous, on the previous, yeah, the working thread of the new one I'm adding. I'll add another one just so you can see. So right, where am I? Coming out of the red, I'm going into the white and back and forth. Okay. And again, I'm now into the corner. I'm going to open this up. And as you can see, it's joined. So I'm going to give this a nice pull just to tighten this up a little bit. So now I'm going to extend my point row around here. And that's going to get things, that's going to allow this to set up to another piece. So to do that, I'm just simply using the same thread and I'm going to go around and add my point row around this second triangle. So, and of course you can do this in any color. You can do it in your main color. I'm doing in red so you can see a little bit better, but it does give you a border if you do it in a different color. So if you're doing triangles and knowing that you want to join them, keep your working thread long enough that you don't have to add a new thread. It's just one of those things that will save you in the long run. I'm at the corner, one bead, and continue my point row around this last little bit.
Now, once you've got the three pieces together,
Uh-huh.
can you make like what's its purpose in life? Can it be an earring?
It could be a lot of things. So let me finish this off and then I will show you, for example, the bracelet and the pendant and another earring. It's a portion of it.
I was just thinking it might be getting heavy for an earring. That's why I was asking.
It can become more than an earring. In this size, yes, it would be a little bit big. Okay, so I've joined it. If I wanted to, depending on what I'm doing, I could go around these two beads and join them, but I don't need to. I'm just going to bury my thread. Where am I coming out of? I'm coming out of this red, so come on, don't break a bead. There we go.
Also teach us again that short thread when we need to add more thread for the peyote or anything.
Okay, I can show you that. Okay, so do a couple more beads here. Okay, so those two are joined. I'm going to trim off the working thread from the second triangle. Okay, so what I have is that. This is the start of this. So this triangle is like that. This triangle is like that. Let me just zoom out a little bit so you can see. So that is the start. That's how you can join triangles if you want them to run in a line. So for example, this one, I'm just undoing it from that, would sit like this. And I could continue to add triangles along joining them to create a band like that. I thought I had another triangle. Here we are. So it's sort of one triangle is upside down to the other. And you keep joining that and you can create a band like that. The other thing you can do is to create something like this. So for example, you can bend this. And that is, whoops, two of that. Okay. You can also put them together in a configuration of like that. So it's really playing with individual triangles, and you can put them together in all kinds of ways. This is, as a band like this is probably the easiest way just to get sort of an orientation. Now, if I wanted to join another triangle to here, again, I've got my working thread left over from here. I'm going to use that, put my needle on that. Again, do my point. I want this to attach to here like that. So I'm just going to fold it up. And I can zip these two pieces together now, going from each upper bead to each upper bead. Did I wrap anything? No. Okay. Again, making sure I'm not wrapping my thread around anything, which is really, really easy to do in peyote because you have such a bumpy surface on the edges that it's really easy to catch your thread.
And which type of Mayuki thread do you use?
For this, I was doing this for something else. So for this one, I was doing a fire line. But typically I would use actually any of the Japanese threads. The Mayuki, the Toho, the Ko. Why do I have a loop there? Hold on. Oh, I've gone out from all of those will work very well. You don't have to use fire line. In fact, in a lot of geometrics, you need a little bit of stretch in your thread. So
Because I was looking at the Betafacts website and they
Yep.
had something called Mayuki B.
yeah, that's your regular Mayuki thread.
Is it?
The
Okay. I
yeah,
wasn't sure.
the numbers or the letters that they have after them is not an industry standard. So like NIMO A, NIMO B, NIMO F, the thicknesses of those threads are going to be different than the other company's threads. There really isn't a huge amount of coordination between them. So I've joined that. I'm going to give it a pull just to make sure my thread is nice and snug. And then I will continue. Now, here you have to decide what you're going to do. So for example, if I wanted to join here, then my point row is already in place. And I could easily then zip it up to create something like that. Okay, you can't join point row to point row. So I could go ahead and join this and create this kind of a shape. This is big and floppy, but it's an oversized one of this. Okay, this one I'm going to join as a row like that. So I know that I can continue and zip along here. So I'm just going to come around here. Oops. So you have to be very clear in your own mind what is going to join to where.
Your hand is away. Can you?
Yeah, I'm trying to anchor my hand here so it's not moving on you. Oops, get back here. I couldn't grab you again if I tried. There we go. Get that out of the way. Okay, I've come to the point. So one bead in the corner. So for example, I could not join these two. So I cannot join point to point. As you can see, they don't zip, they meet. So that wouldn't work. So you have to sort of think where you're going to be joining. Okay, oops. That's easy to do. Sometimes you go through more than one bead at a time. So just backtrack there. Okay, so Okay, so that is joined. I'll go ahead and just bury this thread. Just change direction here. Sometimes it's easier just to go down the spine where the two beads are. You have generally a little bit more room there. Okay, trim that. So that's what we have so far. So we have 3 pieces joined. And I could add the 4th one. I put it somewhere because there it is. Again, reversing it upside down and so on. And that's how you can get the band. Okay, now, if I wanted it to turn around on itself, then I would simply do that, making sure that I didn't join point to or zip point row to point row. So I would have stopped before here and buried it, which would allow me then to join it. And that could be the shape. I could fill that with fiber fill or old beads or anything else, or create another shape like this and join it on the sides like that. So this is sort of 1/2 of this. Or I could simply take this and do an and like that. Okay. So that's a little bit about geometric stuff. There's another example of it where you have a little bit more stronger colors. So as you can see, there's really, in this one, there's very little or very few rows. You don't have to go very far to create these small triangles and then join them together. On the corners where they meet, you just simply join around all 3 triangles and as you go along. Okay, any questions about joining a triangle? So this one I would.
Not specifically about joining a triangle, but you referred a couple of times to the term geometric. Are there other shapes that you can make besides triangles?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Let me
There's a
hold on.
world out there.
There is a world out there. Let me grab something off my curtains. These are designed by Jean Power. Jean Power is an amazing British instructor. She lives in England. So here is square. It's a box. And it opens up. It's functional. You can put something in there. You can do 6-sided as well. And this will stand. I actually have it sort of on a little round stand. So it does stand, although it wobbles a little bit. But this is a 6-sided box and it opens up. You can put things in it as well.
Just what I need, another knick-knack box in my house.
Oh, these are addictive. They really are addictive. This is one of her quadrat boxes and it works also on square and it opens just like that. What she's most known for though are her stars. And this is made up of squares. They're called warp squares. And so that is the square itself, the 4 pieces, the 4 sides. And this one has more than one piece. Or let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is has 6 warp squares. I could do it with 5, I could do it with 4 and get completely different shapes. So this is very dusty, but anyways, it's been hanging in my window there. You can see some of the shine coming up. But this is what she is well known for, is some of her pieces like this. So yeah, so there's a whole world out there of geometrics. This isn't quite so much geometric, but this is one of my own designs. And this part is tubular. So it's done all in one piece, all in the round. And then on the ends here, sorry, I got 2 partials done. So the tube is done like this, and there is actually a beading tube in there keeping the shape open. It comes in or flares out just a little bit, and then I take it back in. So increases and decreases. And then on this part, I do a little bit more beading and it comes straight up like that. So this is all peyote, all of it. It's a huge family of bead stitches. And it's amazing what's out there. So yeah, geometrics are quite amazing. And they really do, once you understand, you know, even the basic triangle and the add, you know, of zipping and point rows, you know, it just goes crazy. I don't have one of my own boxes. As I say, I was putting things away and now I've put them away. But this could convert into another box, just like this, whereas you stop increasing and start adding only one bead in the corner and it just builds on top. So if I wanted this to be a box, I could simply bead up by adding only one bead in the corner, just like a point row. And I would be repeating the point rows and then the row in between, and it would start building up. So any questions?
And, on this box, it's cabochon on top of it you put, or what it is?
This is a Rivoli.
Okay.
It's a Rivoli. It's you can't say these are both Rivolis. So they have a bit of a point back, and you embellish the piece, and then you can, she joins it first and then adds, and then you can embellish it.
They are so cute.
Yeah, and these are also round, but she builds it up square. So yeah, you can check her out. Her name is Jean Power. Let me put that into the chat.
Okay.
Okay, so
She's got a lot of beautiful stuff. I've been Googling while you've been talking.
yeah, there's her website. She does amazing classes. She really does. And the other person I was referring to is Jill Wiseman Designs. You can Google her. She's got a couple of different websites, but she also has a huge YouTube channel. And her videos are very good. So that's sort of a beginner bit about flat peyote and triangles and the things you can do with triangles. And of course, you know, it's just amazing. So if I, you know, it's hard to put it into words, but you just simply twist your triangles and join them in different configurations to get all different things that you can do. So, you know, if I do something sort of like that, you see the beginnings of that. Oh, it doesn't matter. But you see the beginnings of some of these shapes as well. And it's just, you know, things that you can do with peyote. Okay, so I think that this I love. I've done a several boxes. And of course, once you learn how to put them together, then you can change your colors, change your designs, change everything. So yeah, it's totally out there what you can do.
Oh, my fingers. Okay.
Okay, so I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment. Any questions about sort of peyote or triangles or what what you can do with things?
I've seen, I think it was even on your website where you do a bracelet.
Yep.
Do you have something hard in between, inside the tube of the bracelet?
Yes, if you wanted to, you can zip up flat peyote. So you can bring it around and zip it up. And you can put things like straws inside of it.
Just to keep the form?
Just to keep the form, you can use aquarium tubing. If you find a straw, actually what I really like are stir sticks, those round stir sticks that are really stiff. You can trim them down into a manageable length of what fits inside, and that's enough just to keep it in shape. The other thing I like to use is I'll cut the straw lengthwise, and then I can roll up the straw tighter as well. The other thing that I've done on these, okay, the Christmas crackers, is I've taken the tube of an empty tube and beaded around that. So you could bead around this, doing even simple stripes, and you have something like a needle case. So you can actually have something with the lid and create something for needles or whatever you want. The other thing you can use is, I did have, as I say, I put everything away. See, that's what happens when you put everything away. Then all of a sudden I can't grab it. But if you go into a dollar store, all of those little glass bottles that have corks in them in the craft section, you can bead around those. You can bead around just the neck of them and then hang them.
So, for instance, in BeadFX, just beside the cache,
Yeah.
to the left, there's a cabinet that they have. I think there's a dragon.
Yeah, they have some pens there.
And are all those done with, is that peyote where all of those are done with things in the, like something to hold them in the middle?
Yeah, you can actually peyote around a pen if you want. Yeah. Yeah, you can, if it holds still, you can peyote. Now those dragons, they are done in peyote and they're stuffed with some kind of fiber fill. I wouldn't know where to begin on those dragons. These dragons, if you haven't seen them, they're a good 14 inches long, and they've got legs and everything else. They're beautiful. I wouldn't even know where to begin.
They are. I aspire to that.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it's a lot of it is experimenting. I have an idea in my head. I see the idea and then somehow trying to get it through my hands. I've got an idea now and it's not coming through my hands. So it's like, and that's what happens at 2 a.m. So yeah, it's a lot of it is experimentation. Yes, Lisa.
You had suggested Googling, because I really loved making the music bracelet and for more patterns, but it's sort of, you get into this weird universe. Like I Googled free peyote patterns and there was just a lot of junk that came through. Yep. Is there like a couple of just reliable websites where we could get patterns or even to buy patterns that you could suggest?
A lot of those places, I mean, magazines had really good patterns and stuff like that. But now that the magazines are defunct, so are all of their patterns.
Hmm.
What about, like in quilting, we have, there's the company that does a lot of our, provides a lot of our rulers, provides like a black and white template
Mhm.
of what the pattern is, and then you can color into the shapes to get an idea of how you actually want to construct it with the fabric. Is there
There-
something in the
yes.
equivalent?
You can, if you Google free peyote graphs, hold on, let me, I have my whole binder of graph paper. Hold on.
I'm just thinking if we could, that we could convert it. Lisa, you follow where I'm going with this?
Well, to make our own patterns.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd love to be able to do that too. That was my next question was like, if we see something we like, or if we have an idea, how do we create that pattern?
Okay.
like I said, I know it from my quilting, so I'm
Mhm.
looking for the equivalent. And I just Googled the site that Pam said, printable seed graph paper.
Yeah.
Pam,
Yeah.
I just want to suggest, it's Debbie, I just want to suggest that maybe you mention again about the beading software. I bought it and I
Yep.
use it.
The
And I've
beadings.
been doing a lot of loom work with it. I've done a couple of peyote patterns with it I haven't made yet, but I've had a lot of fun with it. And it was, I think it's around $70.
Is it now? Okay.
Yeah,
What's the
so it's
name of
not
the
cheap, but
software?
it's,
The name
Pardon?
is called Bead Tool. I'm going to put that in
Correct.
the chat.
This is cool.
Beadtool.com.
it's really fun. I just want to tell you guys, it's worth the money.
It's I do a lot of, I mean, you can do all kinds. You can create tubular peyote patterns, flat peyote patterns, and also other stitches. So for example, let me see, let me go into share screen.
I couldn't figure out triangular with it. That's the only thing.
No, it doesn't support triangular. I'm looking
No.
for something that does that.
Yeah.
Apparently there
feel-
is something out there. So this is, you can Google and download peyote pattern, and this is what you'll get. And then, you know, you make photocopies or do whatever. And then what you can do is start with your magic markers and start doodling. And this is a lot of what I did was start by doodling. So for example, here, like, how do I do hearts? And I simply took 2 colors of markers and I drew lines how wide I wanted them. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows wide, which is the same width as the music note bracelet. Okay, and then I started doodling. What happens if I get a little bit wider? Well, I just made it wider. So it's, let's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Your pattern may change a little bit. You may have to add, you know, if you want to keep it sort of a certain way. But this is how you can create your own. The software is very flexible when it comes to things, but this is how I started, was creating patterns with pens, really. And they may not all work out. Sometimes they get a little hokey. I think I was inspired by St. Patrick's Day for that. I do like a lot of geometrics, so you can sort of see where some of them are. This was something I had seen and tried to put it into a sort of peyote size. This is just flat peyote. Okay, it is odd count. But, you know, I did shoes that way as well. And all kinds of things, and sort of shoes and purses. And it's just doodling. It really is. These I'm planning to, I mean, I've doodled so many of these things. I haven't actually created the real pattern yet. but I plan to. So, and this is what I would put onto once I could doodle on bead tool as well. But once I doodle and have an idea, then I can translate it into an official pattern. So I started with, when I started making patterns, a lot of stripes, a lot of triangles, diamonds, and so on. And yeah, the other thing I played a lot with was maple leaves. This is getting into more odd count, but yeah, it's just a matter of color. A lot of these are. So that was sort of a Celtic that I was working on, a Celtic braid. I love Celtic stuff.
Oh, me too.
The person that you might be able to go, this was her Deb Moffat Hall. She does a lot of stuff. So you can Google her.
Just as a note, when I Googled beadtool.com, it was asking me to set up the domain and charging me $4,000. It's actually beadtool.net.
That's right.
Beadtool-
It's .net.
Okay, I'm
Sorry.
sorry, I
knew
didn't
that.
realize
If
that.
anybody's looking for it,
Beadtool.net. So somebody has bought beadtool.com and is going to
No,
try and
it's for
extort
sale.
money out of you.
it's for sale.
Okay, yeah, no,
Selling the
beadtool.net. Thank you for that.
I had $4,000. I thought she
No,
was
no,
there.
no, it definitely was not that much.
It
So
was-
Deb Moffat Hall, you could look up some stuff with her. And most of these, there's different ways of decreasing and stuff as well. There's so much out there. The other person, she has passed away, but what you can do at thatbeadlady.com, the store owner was a bead designer, and she still has, her designs are still available. But there were things out of, I found in magazines and that.
Is that the store in Newmarket?
That's the store in Newmarket. So for example, this was the first one, she gave me this pattern. Okay. And that's what got me started. This is the first thing I ever made. But this is a pattern that she created. So it's using delicas. She's got in here size 8 delicas plus the regular. And her patterns are still available. And this is what, a typical pattern will look like. So another one by Deb Moffat Hall. This is this one is available in loom work or square, and this one is the peyote. So the two graphs are a little bit different. They're offset. So if you do counted cross stitch or knitting, you're familiar with this 4 grid pattern. The pattern of peyote is just offset a little bit, but the results are very similar. So one can be a little bit more jagged, that's all. Other things, this is, let me see, move this over. Okay. This is just other stuff that I've done. When I do things, this has been created and printed off of the Bead Tool program. So it's all kinds of things that you can do. This was a Dresden plate. I like quilts as well. This is the original sailboat, which is on my website. And that's how I got started.
But Pam, how do you then translate that into how you wrote the pattern line by line in
The
Word?
software does that.
Okay, because I found that much easier to follow than to,
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
to use the drawing.
Yes, the software, that's one of the features of the software, is that it will translate that into Word.
Okay, so
Yeah.
okay.
But this is how patterns get started, is what's in your head. You try and get it through your hands. So a little bit into the world of 2 o'clock in the morning beading. You know, this is how old they are. They're all sticking together. Okay. So, but yeah, it's, you know, just different things. That was a pattern I did called graffiti, sort of inspired by some graffiti that was on walls and stuff like that. So that's a little bit about designing, where to find stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of junk out there. There really isn't. Etsy is another site if you want to buy patterns. You know, you can just go on to Etsy. Okay, there.
I would like to ask about if we can get like empty peyote paper
Yep.
somewhere.
Yeah, you can just go on to and Google free peyote pattern or free peyote graphs.
I mean,
Fire
like
Mountain.
just paper, just empty, like, you know, like the empty space, and then we can doodle in. Can we buy
Yeah.
a exercise book or something like that?
No, there's no exercise books. It is available online. Fire Mountain Gems have it.
Mhm.
So if you go on to, I think it's firemountaingems.com, they have a section of free papers.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, I have never seen sort of a pad of paper for four square grid. Yeah, there's all kinds of that, but peyote's a little different. Okay, so that's sort of a glance into my world. Okay, any other questions? This is good discussion. Yes.
This is Dessa. I just
Yes.
want to show you this that I got as a gift.
Okay, let
Um,
me spotlight you there. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
Seen it?
Oh,
Yeah,
That is cool.
it's a bracelet. And I
so
had no idea how it was made, how she did it.
That
But
is
now that I'm
cool.
doing peyote, I got it.
that is actually not peyote. Believe it or not, she's wrapped it around something. She has taken strands or beads all in one strand and has been wrapping it around something.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very African design.
Okay.
Yeah, that's getting into some of the African work. But
Okay.
yeah, there's something inside of it that you wrap around. So you could actually just put beads onto a strand of something, thread, fire line, whatever, and start
Mhm.
wrapping it around a bangle.
Okay.
And you could
But it's
use
soft,
glue.
you
Yeah.
see?
I'm sorry.
It's
So it's
soft. It can-
flexible.
Yeah.
You could wrap it around aquarium tubing,
Okay.
and that would keep it flexible as well. Okay. So I think what we'll do is we're just hitting 12 o'clock now. I'm going to get my board switched over for bead embroidery. So we'll take a bit of a break, and then you can gather up your bead embroidery stuff and we'll take it from there. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to.
Easy.
Okay, so bead embroidery, I know I have shown you things like pins and stuff like that. And yeah, we're going to start small, but I want to show you some of the things that you can do. Okay, so they certainly can be sort of these cameo. Well, they're not, they're a little bit bigger than that. However, bead embroidery, it's such a wide group of things that you can do so much, so much. And it's got its own rabbit hole, to be honest. When I started doing bead embroidery, she was, my instructor was trying to get me to do something a little bit more intuitive. I come from a fine art background. And so I like to sort of create imagery and not just beads for the sake of beads. So this is some of the stuff that I got into. These are 6-inch squares. And this is bead embroidery. Okay, you can, she brings in, would bring in a lot of things like maybe old spoons and other metal things and create a much more of an intuitive thing. My slant on that was to create scenes and themes. So for example, this one, let me zoom in so you see it a little bit better. Focus. Okay, so the theme on this one is actually dinosaurs. And I'm telling a story, a story a little bit about, you know, the things that you find. And these are actual fossils. So this is mammoth tusk, as that is. This is a little piece of amber. An ammonite, I think that's how it's pronounced. So I've got different things, different actual fossils in it. This is a piece of dinosaur bone. And I've combined that with other beads that sort of relate to it. So some of these star beads, and did some stitches, stacking and stuff like that. The same stitches in this are also in here. Okay, so it's how you apply some of the stitches. So for example, here I have stacked beads one on top of another, which is no different than stacking them in here. I've put beads sort of that they run side by side, which is like in here, in here, or in here. It's no different than what we're doing along in here. So what we're going to learn in a small scale can be blown up big scale. So, you know, and you can then bring in found objects. Again, this is a theme of what you'd find on a beach. This is actually the result of a challenge that I did. So you can bring in shells. Sorry, was there a question?
Yeah, like this big object, you just use glue.
I use glue. I use
Glue?
E6000. Yeah.
And then you do beading around it the way
I do beading around it. Yeah.
It's beautiful, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. And so I collect things. That's why I have such a stash. I collect things like beach glass, or, you know, things that I find interesting, stones. And you'll notice I didn't encrust it. There's actually batik fabric. So there is a foundation fabric, and it's the same foundation that we will use for our pin or whatever we're going to make. So the foundation is sandwiched there. You see the back of this. There's the foundation. I've taken batik fabric, wrapped it around, and you can see where I have actually done the stitching. So this is sort of what I call under the sea. This was a TBS, Toronto Bead Society challenge. And I incorporated all kinds of things like that. So I had just stuff, including a little bottle that I put in, you know, because you never know what's under the sea. and batik fabric. And I also incorporated some actual embroidery stitches. And as I say, there's so much that you can do. There's another piece. Again, sort of, actually it goes like that. This is very dimensional. That's supposed to stick out. That was actually from a class that was supposed to be a pin. And I said, that's too big for a pin. But there's all kinds of things that you can put in. Buttons, all kinds of buttons, anything you find, any kind of metals. This is another piece, again, under, you know, a seaside theme. Broken glass, a charm. This is sandpaper, just to give the illusion of a bit of sand. Incorporated shells. Some of the things that are fun to incorporate. This is when you go into a floral arrangement place and you have those bottles of shaped glass. They put them in the bottle or bottom of artificial arrangements. That's in there. I just simply glued it on and start beating it around. This one is, this is one that was fun to do. This was my jungle theme. And it's actually, it goes like that. This is a jungle theme piece. And this is a real warthog tusk, which is inspired the whole thing. And it accidentally split in half. So I have the other half of this and it split lengthwise, which was wonderful. And so it became in there. This was a button I found at a knitting show. And just some stones. I had some ceramic pieces. So I had a lion there. There's a sort of a tiger. All kinds of different beads. So I've got some shaped beads, not just seed beads, some petals and stuff like that. Let me see, I've got a chat there. Thank you. So this is, you know, this is just some of the stuff that you can do with bead embroidery. Here, this has been cut out. You can see the back. I haven't backed these. So I was also learning how to do something called cavendoli, which is in the macrame family. And I put that in the back. I cut out a section, put some binding around it, some soutache binding. So it got a little bit of dimension that way. And then if you don't want to stick with flat, well, then you can do dolls. So the person who taught me this was very much into spirit dolls and doing three-dimensional pieces. And I created, there's several more of these actually. These are my semi-precious sisters. So this is citrine, this is lapis, and this is onyx. And these are truly, what's the word, intuitive. There is no pattern to this at all. It's just, I beaded where the beads wanted to tell me they wanted to go. And I've used all kinds of things. So there's things like ribbon. There's, you know, I've glued on stuff and beaded around it. I've done little tails. This is coral actually. And I forget where I found it. It was, I think it was in a garage sale. It was an old necklace that somebody didn't realize what they had. And it's like, ooh, that's hair. I've also incorporated things like leather, bigger stuff. This is my motorcycle mama. So, you know, there's all kinds of things in here. I've got a little bit of chain. You know, there's roving and everything else. I actually found a little motorcycle to put with her. So there's a whole lot of things that you can do that. Thank you. Yeah, it is pretty mind-blowing. And what we're doing on something small like this is no different than expanding it to something larger. So this is a rabbit hole all by itself. To make something like this, you can do a stuffed doll And what she's done is that she has simply used wool felt, which isn't too terribly hard to get. Wool felt is a little thicker than regular felt, and will withstand all of the beating. And then she fills it with fiberfill, sews it up, and then you just do bead embroidery on top of it. Okay. I have all the pictures of these on my website. There's bead paintings, and I think there's something about the dolls. There's also a dragon there that is called Ryoko, who is another doll, but her wings are fire. So I've created stories about all of these. So this is what bead embroidery can be, plus more. You can create framed pictures if you want, you know, using all kinds of buttons and beading and everything else. So I love doing this stuff. I really do. And there's not enough hours in the day to do everything. So bead embroidery. Where do you start? Well, you start with something smaller and more familiar. So you start, it could be a cabochon. A cabochon is simply a flat back something. It could be stone, it could be glass, it could be a piece of plastic, it could be a button that you cut the back off if it's like a shank button. It is easier if it is a flat back. If you have something like a shank button, which is what this one was, you can put layers. It's a little hard to see here because I've closed it up. There's layers of fabric in there just to build it up. So this is stable. So good idea is to start with something flat. And then you can bead around it. You can be symmetrical or not symmetrical. You can use a glass cabochon, a clear glass cabochon, and put an image behind it, or fabric, or anything else of importance to you. So for example, if you went to a show in New York City and it was an amazing experience, why not put a ticket, part of your entry ticket, under a piece of glass? And then you can include things that were from that show. So I'm thinking of things like Les Mis. If you had a ticket from Les Mis, the colors in that would be definitely the red, white, and blue of the French flag, which was also colors of the French Revolution. I know Les Mis takes place after the Revolution, but that's where you get into themes. So that is my niece. I think I mentioned to you before about that. This is a piece of azurite. It is a stone. It's at Bead Effects, I got it something like that. They don't have to be expensive. They could be made out of plastic, anything that you like. So this is stone. This is ceramic. Another piece of ceramic here. This is actually a piece of glass. Goes like that, actually. And it's from a button. And the company where these come from, they come from the Czech Republic, and they're known for their vintage glass buttons. So the molds themselves are vintage. They've been around a long time. And then from those molds, they make buttons from them that are current. So they've actually also started creating cabochons. So it's the buttons without the back, basically. And, I've beaded around that, just done some very simple beading, but I added some flower beads. And up here, I added just a little charm. And it was sort of a garden theme. Things are more interesting if you break the edges. So by breaking the edge here, a little bit more interesting, and breaking the edge up here. Again, another example of breaking the edge. So today, as I say, I'm going to use azurite. The foundation I'm using this was purchased at Michaels, and they have some stiffened felt. Their earlier stuff was much stiffer and I liked it better, but you can buy it. This is, I say, I bought this quite a while ago, and it was not expensive. You can also get foundation fabric. I know some of you have gone up to that bead lady. They have it. Beadsmith is the brand. This is another brand called Lucy's Stiff Stuff. It comes in white or black for Lucy Stiff Stuff. It's also available in what's called good felt, and it comes in all kinds of color. This is a piece of good felt, and it is quite a bit stiffer. Okay, you want it stiff enough, whatever you're using, to support the weight of the bead so that it's not completely flopping over. It will eventually start to bend and everything else. But it's thick enough and it has enough stiffness to support the beads. Another brand that's out there is called Nicole's Bead Backing. Okay, and this I bought in a show. That's a little bit where you can find her information. It looks like she sells through Etsy. And, you know, this is just a sampler pack of some of the things. But these are just some of the colors that are available. For some things, you don't have to encrust it. You can do all kinds of beading. Certainly, if you wanted to do some indigenous style of beading. I took a class recently with, her name is Naomi Smith, and she was teaching some of the indigenous stitches and that. And so something like this is a great size. This is 4 by 3. So if you're looking for something to practice on and practice stitches, something like this would be a good size. You know, you can cut down any pieces of white or whatever and practice some stitches. Okay, so that's a little bit about some of the materials. Now, at the end, when you're finished, we will be backing it. So for something like that works really very well. This is Ultra Suede. As you can see where I've cut pieces out of it already. This comes in usually a 9 by 9, 8 by 8 sheet. You want it large enough so that it covers the back. You certainly won't need a full piece, but you know, you want enough that will cover the back. And that's actually what I cut out for this piece. And yes, you can add a pin back. You can add a jump ring to the back. So there's many ways you can do it. You could also just simply put something like this on a small easel and just use it as display. So lots of things that you can do with bead embroidery. So to get started, what you're going to do, and I hope most of you have done this already, is that you simply use glue. I do like E6000, and you glue it just to a piece of foundation. This does need to set up. You don't have to take it to the edge like that. This one is not taken to the edge, but what I will do now is actually stitch around it and secure it. So the glue is a backup. And then if you wanted to glue other things like I've done in some of the larger pieces, my bead paintings, you could certainly glue things around it. For something like this, I would suggest that we just limit it to stitching around it, but you can use all kinds of shaped beads, such as leaves, such as flowers. I have pulled out a few things. I don't know if I'll use them all. I've got some daggers here. So after you've glued it on.
Pam, I have a question.
Yes, please.
So I used wool felt, which
Yep.
is not as stiff as what you're using.
Mhm.
Eventually, could I bead around this, but before I sandwich this weight to the back, put in something stiff in between to give it the body?
You could put in cardboard. You could cut up a file folder and sandwich a file folder cardboard. It doesn't need to be really thick or heavy. So something like file folder would work very well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. In fact, the woman who taught me a little bit this week about the indigenous, she beads through file folder fabric all the time. She'll put the backing onto the cardboard or onto a piece of paper and bead through that. And she finds that really helpful. I have to get used to something like that. Not used to that yet.
So, so can I bead just through the wool felt, but later put in something as that sandwich between the wool felt and the backing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
good.
for sure. Okay, so what I have done is glued this on just in the middle, let it dry completely. Now I want to audition some of the pieces that I want. As I say, I may not use all of these, but I have pulled out a selection of beads from my stash that sort of go into the color family. Azurite has some bright green, a sort of a turquoisey green, as well as some bright blue. Let me zoom in on it a little bit. So I've got a fruit fly here. Okay, 'tis the season for fruit flies. So, you know, depending on what you're using, find some beads and that go with color, with the color of this. And let that be your inspiration. So there's all kinds of things that in my stash I could use. I'm still not sure what I'm going to use. But the first thing we're going to do is to bezel around our cabochon and so that it looks like it's in place. It's always a good idea, if you want as well, to create some kind of a drawing. It's not written in concrete. It's only written on paper with pen or pencil. So as this may be a starting point of a design, and you don't have to stick with it. You might say, oh no, I think I like this better. So here I've thought, okay, what about putting the cabochon in? The sort of these pieces around the edge shows the bezeling. I could put a row of beads around there, just a little bit larger. And what if I use some of these daggers coming down the end? And then I've also got some of these flowers that could poke out. That's an idea. It's a possibility. I may not like the idea once I get to it, and I'll do something else. So this is where you get to design. And all of you have been making jewelry that have been beautiful. And you're ready to do some design work. And actually, you've been doing it all along in the colors that you've been choosing and the materials that you've been choosing. So go further. I have my needle, and you can use any size needle that goes through the beads. I'm going to put the glue away because I don't need that now, but I am going to pull out some thread. Generally speaking, the color thread should match the backing, okay, unless you're using something where your thread color that you wanted as part of the design. You want the thread to melt away. Because, for example, if I choose to use a darker green and I'm using something lighter, I run the risk of that thread showing more than I want it to. Okay, now there are exceptions to every rule. You may disagree with me, and that's fine. I am going to use white thread. Typically, I would use white thread, but you wouldn't be able to see what I'm doing with that. So for some, I'm going to use a color thread, and I'll work it just so that, you know, on those sections, you won't see or you can see how I'm doing it, but work it so that you don't see the thread in the finished piece. So to get started, I am simply going to pull. I don't need, I will pull probably a good 1.5 meters and give it a cut don't work with so much thread. It's easy to add thread to this. And like all the time, I'm going to stretch out my thread. Feel free to interrupt me, please, with any questions, any what ifs. Okay. So I'm going to stretch out my thread. And I'm going to thread my needle.
On what you've said thus far, it doesn't seem that there's any kind of rules that you start with like bigger beads close to the cabochon and work
No.
outwards.
No, there are no rules that way. Some people may have strong feelings who do design work. I think of this in terms of painting. So if you want a heavier line around your cabochon, then do thicker beads, do larger beads. If you want a thinner line around your cabochon, use finer beads. Okay, so I'm ready to start. I start with a quilter's knot. And a quilter's knot, you can do the old spit and twist, which is what I learned. You know, you wrap it around your finger, wet it and roll it off. In light of the pandemic, if you don't want to leave DNA on your thread, a quilter's knot, let me zoom in here just so you see a little bit better. You've got your needle like that, or if you're right-handed, it's like that. You take the end of the thread. This is the other end that doesn't have the needle on it. I'm going to grab the end of the thread and just wrap it a few times around my needle. Okay. I'm going to keep that snug. I'm going to grab those loops that I've run around and I'm going to pull my thread. Those loops are in my fingers. Pull my thread through it to the end. And lo and behold, you get a knot. Let me do that again because this was a game changer for me, was the quilter's knot. Okay, let me see if I can do this right-handed. Okay, so I'm holding a needle. It's in my right hand. I've got my thread. The end is, I'm holding the end in my thumb and index finger. I'm wrapping it around. Doesn't matter what way you wrap it. I'm going to grab around there. Okay, so I've got all those loops and I'm just going to pull them through and take my thread through it. And when it gets to the end, it creates a knot and it's a really nice looking knot. Okay. Now, this first bit, I'm choosing to do what's called sort of that stacked bezel. And I know you have all the notes for this. I will be demonstrating all of these and what it's going to look like. It's going to look something like this. I could do a row. Hold on. What do I want to do? You've got the instructions and the image for this. Let me take this part for you, this row first. Okay, we can do that stack stitch in another row. This is the easiest thing to start with. So for that, I think I will use, let's see, I didn't pull out any size 8 seed beads. Oh, I do have some. I have some right here. So this is going to be a heavy line going around the edge because I will use the size 8s. This is just some Japanese beads. Who knows what they are. These I got from Bead Lady ages ago. You can tell by a price of $2.29. I'm just going to puddle them here. Okay, so I'm going to come up from the back and I'm going to poke my needle through about half a bead width apart. Okay, you can go a little closer if you want, like that, and I'm just going to pull through. So this first one is called back stitch. And if you do any embroidery, your needle is pointing in one direction and you're going in the other. So it's a very useful stitch. This is one where you can see it's all done in back stitch. Back stitch on here. Around the cabochon is back stitch, and then this is as well. So you can see where some of the back stitching is taking place. So I've come out.
How long, excuse me, how long should be the thread?
You can make the thread about a meter and a half, whatever is comfortable for you, because doing sewing like this, it's easy. It's very easy to end and start a new thread. Okay. So I've threaded it. There's the knot. It's on the back side, and I'm coming out. Try and hold this so you can see it. It's coming out about half a bead's width. And I'm going to pick up, because these are larger beads, get rid of the ones that are wonky. I'm going to pick up about 5 beads, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So these are going to, I'm just taking the beads down, and they're going to lie around the beadwork like that. So I've taken the 5 beads down. I'm laying them down. I want to see how far they go. And I'm going to stitch straight back down through the foundation at the end of that bead. Okay. So that is the first part of my first stitch. So if I was to continue, I would have these gaps, and I don't want these gaps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back stitch and come up between roughly the second, third, or, between 2 beads, about midway between, just like that.
You don't go up and down through the foundation for each bead?
Nope, not in this. You can if in some ways you do, but not particularly in this. Actually, I've gone backwards direction here. So I have come up between 2 beads, and I'm going to stitch between these 3 beads and get into place. Sorry, my thread is catching on all kinds of things here. So there, I have stitched through, gone back and stitched through half of those beads again. On the back, you can see where I've gone back. So now I'm ready to add some more beads, and I'm actually doing this right-handed, which is why it's awkward. Okay, so I'm going to pick up another 5 beads. Now, if you're comfortable picking up only 4, that's fine. I would not go over 5 or 6 when it comes to the beadwork, because it's just too much chance of having gaps. So I've picked up another bunch of beads, bringing them down. I'm going to lie them down. Make sure everything is bunched in, and I'm keeping these bunched in right close to the cabochon. Okay. And where these beads end, I'm going to go straight down. And I'm coming out the back. And I'm going to backtrack and come back up. And I'm going to have to stick my needle through a few times to get through the right place. Like that. Okay. So lay my thread down. It's going to go between 2 beads very well. It's not going to distort anything. And I'm going to stitch back through the last 3 beads that I've added. So in those groups of beads that I'm adding, I'm securing it overall every 2 or 3 beads. I could, if I wanted to, just put down 2 beads at a time. There, get everything out of the way. There. Put down 2 beads at a time, stitch down where they end. and come back up between the two beads, which would in effect make it stitching every, at the end of every bead. But it's really not necessary. Now, some of the indigenous beading is done, with a lot more security, but they're also used for different things. So they're used for bags or regalia. So they're going to powwows with it. This won't have the same stress on it. And I would continue all the way around. At the back, you can see where I'm backtracking. So, any questions so far? So I'm picking up 5 beads, taking them down to my beadwork, laying them down, making sure when I do it this way that there's no gaps. Okay. When I've got them down, I simply stitch down. And then come back up 2 or 3 beads back. And yes, you can stitch through multiple times to make sure that your needle is coming out where you want it. And I tend to, when I come back up, just to make sure that when I go between a bead, it's not going to distort it. And I am coming up when I'm coming back up to secure it, I am coming up pretty close to the cabochon because I want to make sure there's no gaps between the cabochon and the beads.
Once you've come back up, oh, okay, you just did it. Never mind.
Yeah, I'm coming back and going to the end of that beadwork. So
you're
that when
traveling
the
the
next
bead.
one I come, they will bunch up and they will be, through a thread joined. Now, if I don't like this, I could undo this at any time. There are no knots. The only knot we've put in is right there. So it's still easy to remove the beads and do something else. So.
And for the embellishments, do
Yeah.
you leave a gap? And then it's
You
like
could
the
add-
picture that.
Yeah, you could add the embellishment now. So if you, for example, wanted to, like when I get down here, I may add a flower and just add, I would beat it as I go along.
Got it, thanks.
Yeah. So I've laid it down. Going straight down at the end of those beads. And then coming back up. As I say, you may have to poke through 2 or 3 times. You get used to it. This is a new skill. If you've done any hand embroidery, you've got a bit of an advantage. So
It's got really dull all of a sudden.
okay, so again, I don't want gaps, so I'm just going to push those beads back so that everything is lining up well. How are you guys doing?
This is great, Pam. Lots of fun.
This is very relaxing. We've sort of gotten out of doing a lot of hand stitching. This, hand embroidery used to be very popular. I think it's beginning to come back. Certainly a lot of the handcrafts did during the pandemic. But bead embroidery and counted cross stitch, things like that, I don't know if they're quite coming back, but they can be very Zen-like.
The counted cross stitch is coming back, and a lot of wool work is very popular now.
Okay.
The quilting store that I usually go to and take lessons from
Uh-huh.
has there's a lady there that has started with doing a lot of wool work, and they're like pictures. Some of them are little pictures, like 4 or by 6 or whatever, And all the picture is made up of different colors and shapes and sizes of wool and text.
Wow.
It's
Now-
all about texture.
Yes. Now, what technique is she using? Is she like felting or is she
With
embroidering?
wool felt, with wool felt.
With wool felt. Okay. Because felting, I mean, you can do a base of wool felt and then do punch or not punch, needle
No.
felting on top of that.
Yeah, I think she's doing, I think there's some punch in there as well. I have tried to stay away from it because I do not need another hobby.
Oh, I know. Trust me.
I've got a bunch of UFOs upstairs from just the quilting alone, never mind, and starting something new.
Oh,
UFOs are unfinished.
yes, unfinished objects, PhDs, projects half done.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah. There's one of my favorites is Sable, S-A-B-L-E, stash acquisition beyond life expectancy.
I hadn't heard that one.
Yeah.
I don't have that. I only started quilting when I retired, so that was like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah. So it's coming along. It does work up pretty quick. Certainly the bigger beads help. And then come back up. There is a project that was going on for the last, well, during the pandemic, initially started by a couple of Indigenous women. I think they were both Métis, one for sure, and called the Breathe Project. And what they did was to create masks using some of the Indigenous techniques. And it's a Facebook group. If you go, I think it's just, let me put it into the chat. If you go into Breathe, Facebook, Breathe, I think it's just called Breathe Group, Breathe. You'll be able to see some of the masks. They're actually going around the country now in physical displays. And they're stunning. It's, and it's just what people's interpretations. A lot of bead embroidery, yes, it can be very decorative. Think of haute couture and putting sequins on stuff. That's all bead embroidery. But it can also be used to tell stories.
My grandmother did needlepoint.
Yeah.
Forever. My mother has been doing needlepoint since I was a kid, but the last number of years she's kind of kicked it up a notch. This place she goes to get her canvases, and so now it's not just continental stitch. There's a million different kinds of stitches,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of the work that she's been doing adds beads, and
Yes.
so it didn't occur to me until, because I did one class with her and I have an unfinished project,
Mhm.
but she's always got projects on the go, and always with beads added for texture into the needlepoint, which is very cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I decided to take this class, because I wanted to add beadwork to the quilting.
Yes. And there's a lot of beadwork now happening in modern quilts.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm coming here to, I've almost gone around. I'll just add my typical 5. I'm going to see how they fit. Oh, wow, I couldn't ask for better. So when you get to a gap, just put some needles or beads on a needle and see how that fits in there. And I think I'm going to try this and see how it fits. I think that'll fit okay. So on the last one, I don't go straight down. Actually, I think I will. Sometimes I go through the bead ahead of it. Yep, there. That fits perfectly. And that, you never know how it fits. So I'm going to go straight down. And just to make sure where I'm at, I'm going to come back up. There. Okay, let's just tighten this. Because once I get around, it's like, okay, where am I? Okay, tighten that up and see where I've poked up. Okay, that's not bad. Again, my thread is going between the needles without distorting it. And I'll just go through a few beads. And I have finished going around as I yank it out of my hand, just like that. So I'm just going to go back down. That row is finished. Okay, now what do I want to do? I don't know. But this is where, as I say, you're painting with beads. So I'm just going to put these away. Otherwise I get a bead soup somewhere in my desk. And I do like it's a little more green than what's showing up on my screen. But I want to brighten it a little bit. And let's see, I've got all kinds of dark beads. That matches very well, but I think I want something brighter. That's got more shine. And it does lean towards a little bit more of the, okay, where's my sea foam? Where's my other sea foam? I'll be back. Okay, so I've got two colors of sea foam here. One is galvanized, sort of a darker, and one not. It's funny, the one they put dark is actually brighter than the one that isn't. So, you know, people say, well, why do you have so many beads? Well, it's because of things like this. Whereas if you have paint, you can add a little bit of white or black or gray or another color and change the tones. With beads, you don't. You can't. You can visually mix beads, you know, through a bead soup or something, but it's like having different shades of paint. So for something like this, I'm going to go something a little bit brighter. And I think I'm going to do, just to give texture, I'm going to do a stack. Okay, so any questions about what we've done so far? We will not finish this today because I'm sure you're getting ideas and saying, I've got to find stuff first. Okay, any questions so far? No? Okay, let's continue then. So when I'm doing something stacked, for example, sort of looks like that, where I'm stacking beads one on top of another, and I'm going back down the stack. I can join the stacks, or I can simply let them be loose. I'm just looking for something in my pieces here. Okay, for example, here. These are stacks of beads, and I can mix sizes. So just move these over there. There you see the stack. So for example, here I use 2 size 8 beads, laying one on top of another, and then I've put a smaller bead on top and have gone straight back down those 2 beads. So all of these are just individual stacks of beads like that. If I wanted to join them, I could just simply bring my needle back up again and join through all of these beads that are on top. So I could do that around a cabochon if I wanted to, just like I've done here around a button. And that's another way of capturing a cabochon. You can see that where I've done it on this one is stacks of beads. So I have the black and then silver on top, and then I've taken a thread and joined them. Okay, sometimes you have to, depending on the shape of what's underneath it, sometimes you have to add the odd bead just so it's not pulling too tight. So how do I create a stack? I'm going to do, let's see, I think I want, that's going to be on top for sure. I've got some darker beads here. These are Tohos, these are 11s. So I'm going to use a couple sizes of couple colors of size 11 beads. So I'm just going to puddle those out. Let's see if I can bring this over a little bit so you can see. Okay. So there's a puddle of some dark ones. They'll go on the bottom, and I'm going to put these brighter ones on top. Okay, let's zoom out just a little bit so you can see. Okay, so I have my needle and thread. My thread is certainly coming out, or currently coming out of the back. Okay, that's what my back is looking like so far. I'm going to come back up. And yes, I could jump over here if I wanted to. All of this will be covered. Oh, sorry. I could jump over here if I wanted to and start beading in this area. All of this will be covered. But I'm just going to come up pretty close to the previous row because these beads are smaller. Stacking beads and this technique takes a little bit more time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a stack. I'll see what 3 beads plus the topper looks like. So there's my 3 beads and there's my top bead. I'm going to bring them all down and sort of audition them. So hold this so you can see it. There's what it's going to look like. Do I like the height? Maybe a little too tall. Okay, but it is close enough. I like where the position is. It's close enough. But I'm going to take a couple of beads off. Take one of the, make it only 3 beads high. So I'm just going to remove those and put my topper bead back on. Okay. So to make sure that I'm going straight up and down, what I like to do is just hold it. And then I'm going to miss the first bead because that's sort of my anchor so it doesn't go back. A little hard to do it and show you at the same time. Let's pick it up. Okay, so I'm just going to move that top bead out of the way and go straight back down. I could also wiggle my needle so that it's a little closer if it needs to be. And when I do that, that's what I'm left with. So that's how high it'll be in relation to it, which is pretty good for me. I like that. If I didn't like it, all I have to do is pull the beads and take it all apart. So, you know, it's as variable as you want. And if I do this all the way around, then this is what I'll do. I think when I get to the bottom here, I'm going to pause and audition to see what those daggers look like. So I'm coming back up very close. And again, I'm coming back up pretty close, not right beside it because the beads do take some space. My 2 base colors plus my top color. I'm going to bring it down. Let them fall, make sure that they land where, you know, is in a good place. I'm going to go stitch back down those last 2 beads. I'm missing the first one. If I stitch back down all 3 beads, they're all going to fall off. But I don't want that. Just like that. And I'm simply going to go around the piece like that.
Do you want the top bead to stack exactly the same as the 2 bottom ones? Or do you
It's going
want-
to
Oh,
be on its side.
Yeah, okay. That's
Yeah,
what
it's going to automatically be on its side.
That's what I was noticing.
But you know, when I go back down, I can, you know, sort of wiggle it around, making sure it's going to position exactly where I want it. Now, I am keeping all this one size. However, let me show you examples where I've varied the size. So I'll just put that down for a moment. Okay, so you can, if you want, create sort of this wave effect. Let's see if I can get this so you can see it. Okay, so this right here, I've used all different colors of beads. You can see where they're stacking. Some have maybe 3 beads, some have fewer. And then I've taken a thread and gone bead to bead, and sometimes adding more beads in between, and that causes it to ruffle, just like that. And your stacks are going to sort of move in and out of the way. So for here, I've added, these are size 15 beads, and I've added a whole pile of extras, and it's caused it to ruffle rather. So you can create sections. You can create where you can draw your eye to different parts. Let me see. Here's another example. I've done a stack stitch right there, and I've used bugle beads. Bugles are tubes of glass, or a glass tube, and I've gone up, added my seed bead to the top of it, and gone right back down the bugle. These are not joined together, but that's another way of stacking your beads. So bugle beads are really handy for that. Here's another one where I've created sort of that wave in here. And I've incorporated some bugles. I've incorporated other colors and beads. And then when I've joined them, added some other colors, and you create that wave. So, you know, there's just, with all the same stitch, many options that you can do. Yeah, that's probably, those are the 2 of the best examples there. Okay, so I'm going to continue this around. And, you know, I want to make sure my next row of beading will bunch this up a little bit closer. So I'm just going to continue around doing this. Part of me wants to make this wavy. I don't know. It just occurred to me the beads want a little bit more movement. So I'm going to continue this around, then I'm going to join the top. Okay, so as I say, nothing is written in stone. First, you have to come back up though. Nothing is written in stone. Think of it as just pencil and paper and wet concrete. You can change your mind at any time by undoing whatever you want and creating something new. Okay. I always forget to come back up before I add beads. And you know, you get used to where you're coming up. I use my finger on the back here just to help support the needle when I'm moving it around. Some things you don't even realize what you're doing. I think my upstairs neighbors are moving. I'm hearing all kinds of thumps and bumps and everything. Okay, so I'm just going to continue down.
My
Oops.
next door neighbors have been redoing their bathroom.
Oh,
It happens to be on a common wall
okay. Yeah.
all week long.
Oh, well, I noticed a U-Haul out in the back, so I wonder if somebody is moving out.
Speaking of U-Haul, what day are you having your, come to your,
Are you planning to bring a U-Haul?
no.
Oh, okay. Just checking. I sent out, all of you would have received a newsletter, I think. Most of you have anyways. I think you all should have. I'm having my sample and supply show on the 12th of December. Okay, which is a Sunday afternoon. I think I don't have the time marked on my calendar. I think I put 1 to 4. And everyone is welcome. That was sort of the impetus for me to do the cleaning up and putting things away to see what it is I actually have and what I can pull from. And I have a lot to pull from. So yeah, I will have, I'll have wire, I'll have beads, I'll have miscellaneous stuff that at some point I thought would be really handy and have never used it. So yeah.
My beads are not around the cabochon, are not lying nicely. Am I
Okay.
pulling it too tight or is it too loose?
Are they laying flat?
Sometimes.
Okay.
But then I'll go a few sections on and then they'll start to stick out.
Sounds
I'm-
like you may be over tightening it.
I'm wondering if that's the.
Yeah, it sounds like you may be over tightening it and forcing the beads out of place.
Let's get in there. Let's just go back and play with it right here.
So this is a Zen experience. This is not something you race through.
I see why you forget to put the bead on before you come up. I've done that a few times.
I know, eh? All of this, it's, yeah. So how's everyone doing? I'm going to just stop sharing for a moment and I'll just go to, anyone have anything they'd like to show me? Dessa? Yeah.
Yes, again, yes. Unfortunately, I have to leave.
Okay.
So next week I'll see you.
Okay. Sounds good. Take care.
Yes, you
Okay.
too.
You can.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, let me go back to gallery. Anyone have anything they'd like to show me?
I do.
Yes, Leslie, please. Oh, Leslie, I love your colors. Very cool. Are they made out of wood or what are they made out of?
Wood,
They are wood.
except this one. This is a plastic one, the green one, but the rest are wood.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. What are you doing with all the things you're making, Leslie?
It gives cake.
They have all been bagged into these, and they're gonna be gifts for people. They're
Oh,
full of little baggies like this of different bracelets and necklaces that she sent.
are they going to an organization or are they going to specific people?
Who are they going to?
They're going to for people for Christmas gift.
As part of hampers kind of thing?
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Leslie, that is a great thing that you're doing. I'm so glad. Good. Okay. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Will you like it?
I do. I like the colors that you choose. Good. Okay. Anyone else have anything they'd like to show and share? Yes, Kathy. Oh, that's looking great. So
Wow.
what are you planning to do with that?
Oh, am I muted? No,
Yep.
pendant, I think.
Okay. Are you going to even out the edges? Or are you going to have them sort of they stick out beyond the edges?
I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead yet.
Okay. Yes. This looks great. Can you hold it up again? Okay. So you've got all kinds of beads there. This is where it's really handy to have things like leaves and, you know, some of the 2-hole beads are wonderful, and you attach them just like you are now, just by stitching them through. Excuse me, stitching them through and helping them lie flat, whatever it takes. Okay, Bridget, let me see what you've got. That looks great. Now, the center, is that all one piece? Is it it is a button.
The center is a button. I'm trying to make something to cover up a bit of what I see as a defect on the sweater I made. So
Okay.
I want to put it here to cover that. That's why we've got the colors that we do.
No, that looks wonderful. That looks great. There's no defects. It's just creative engineering.
Oh, it's a defect.
Okay. Who else would like to share? Lisa, yes. Okay, go ahead, Lisa.
Okay.
Just, oh, you still have one.
Oh, that looks great.
So I've got I'm stacking.
Yeah.
Stacking.
Yeah, I see the stacking.
They are having a mind of their own. Like I'm finding that some are lying flat, some are sticking up, but
That's okay. That's okay. It looks great. Now, is that a cabochon or is that also a button?
No, it's cabochon.
It is a cabochon.
Yeah, I got it at Beat FX.
Okay.
And when I put it in the light, I didn't realize there's a ton of color in it. So
yeah.
I don't know if you can see, but it's blues and greens.
Yep.
And, so I've just picked out, Rosemary was helping me and she's amazing.
Yeah,
and so
she is.
just, like picked out these, and I'm hoping to add, I got the little flowers.
Yep.
As well, so hoping to put those in.
Good. That is so, it's exciting. It's fun.
I love it. I've done needlepoint and cross stitch and like all that stuff for years and years and years. And but I love the beads, and this really kind of integrates both of those skills. I like it a lot.
Good. I'm so glad. I'm just enjoying this tremendously. Saida. Oh, that looks good. Are you enjoying?
What are you doing? I'm doing the same thing.
Feel free to please. You'll follow me over the cliff. Don't follow me over a cliff. Just, you have great ideas. And
I
use
will
your ideas.
apply after, but right now I want to learn the way you are doing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, okay. I
you.
promise not to take you too close to the cliff then.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, who else has something to show and share? Anyone?
I can.
Oh, Marcia, sorry. You're in a dark space right there. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Let's see what I'm get some light on it. Sorry about the.
Oh, that looks good.
So one of the things I just figured out on the stacking is I really need to go back down the same place I came up.
Yes.
Otherwise it gets a little messy.
Yes. Now you can use that messiness to your advantage. So, if you wanted something with a lot more texture, then, you don't have to stack one on top of the other. You can also just make loops as well.
Oh, loops. Okay.
You can make loops. Yeah. So lots of, there's just, if you can dream it, you really can do it. Anyone else? No? Okay. I will go back to my screen share and I shall continue. So what I meant by loops, so for example, I could pick up 1, 2, I could pick up a few beads here. So there's 6 beads, okay? I'm going to take them down to my beadwork. And I could go into the same hole, but I'm going to go over just a little bit more. And take it through. And there I have a loop of beads. It's better if it's an odd number. So let me pull this back and just Let me actually make it so it looks different. Rethread my needle. Okay, so if you're going to make loops, odd numbers are better. So instead of 6, I'll pick up 5. 3, 4.
Can I write your question in the chat? Okay.
Okay, so there we are. So I've got 5 beads. I'm just going to ask you to mute there and just go straight back down. 1 bead, but 1 space over. And that creates a loop. So, you know, you can do that. You have a different texture. And some people call that sort of a fill stitch, F-I-L-L. And you can do all kinds of fill effects doing that. And of course you can, you know, vary the number of beads. Odd numbers work best because then you don't get that thread at the top. So you've got a number of beads there, go back down about 1 bead width over. And there's the effect of what fill sort of a loop looks like versus a stacking.
You do that one more time, please.
Yep. So I'm taking it right back up. Oh. Okay. This time I'll just do it all in one color. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to go back down about 1 bead width away from where I went up.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And there's my loop of beads. So, you know, you can do all kinds of stuff that's different. It doesn't have to be, you can play. Okay. So, and again, if you didn't like it, take your needle off, don't try to unsew it, and simply pull it back. Like that. The foundation fabric is strong enough to do that. The last one there. And you can continue on with however you want to do it.
Soon it will be time to add thread.
Okay, well, let me show you. Let me do one more stack and I'll pretend that I need to add thread. I'm just trying to thread my needle here. Did you know there's a front and back to needles as well?
Yep.
If how needles are made, they're made using wire. They line up all those wires and they take a punch and they literally punch the hole, the eye through the wire. And then all of that is polished and everything else. So if you find you can't get it through one side of the eye, turn the needle around and try on the other side. Okay, so I'm going to add my last stack before I change. Take the beads down. Again, straight back down.
I did a stack of 7 and it looks like a petal. It's really
Yes.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah, you can get it to look like grass. So you could vary that. Do some with 7, some with 5. Yeah. All kinds of stuff. So when you need to add thread, you've got your thread at the back. That's what it's looking like with the stacking. So you can do a lock stitch. So just do a small overcast stitch there. Another one. I tend not to do knots, just an overcast like that. A couple of them, and then I can trim. Okay, remember all of this is going to be covered. And then I would pull another piece of thread, do another knot, quilter's knot again, by wrapping my thread around the needle, grabbing those loops around the needle and pulling through to the end, and there it is. And then all you have to do is take your needle right back up where your next stitch needs to be, just like that. And then you can just continue on beading. Okay.
So what happens if you, like, I'm at a point where I'm thinking something that I did a while back, I don't like.
Okay.
Just, I guess, cut them out and go redo it.
You can. You might have a little bit of issue with the threads sort of coming undone. If you're going to, yeah, because you don't want to disturb the other part. I would add just a drop of fabric glue near the stitches that you don't want to be disturbed.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And then if you need to cut it, go ahead and cut it. But that fabric glue on the back where you're going to cut it, if you apply that, let it dry first, then for sure you're not going to disturb the other stitches. Okay. Okay, so that's right. So if you are doing sewing work and making jackets, you could certainly do bead embroidery on the jacket. If you're going to do that, make sure that the beads are opaque, no silver lined things, and hand wash it. Okay. If you're doing a vest or something like that, and you're using good strong thread. Nylon thread, I've not had an issue with it wearing out. But yeah, I would keep washing to the minimum. Okay. Okay, so this one, for example, has a little bit of a gap. I left too much there. So I'm just going to use my needle and move the beadwork over to where I want it to be, like that. So when you go back down, you do have the flexibility to do some corrections, so to speak. Okay. Now, so here what I'm doing, I've got those little daggers. I'm just going to line them up and see if I even like what they look like. These particular ones have a bit of color on one side and a little bit more flash on the other. So you can use whichever side you want. That brings in a little bit more of the blue, gets it away from the green. So I'm just sort of designing at this point what I want to maybe do. There are the rules, odd numbers are more interesting. And this is probably where I would employ that. So I'm going to have just one in the middle. And I am going to at least initially spread them out a little bit. See how I like them. just before I get too close to where. Okay, I kind of like that. Okay, so I typically don't mark my fabrics. However, in this case, I'm just going to give it a little bit of a mark there so I know how far I'm going to go. So it's just sort of a very small mark. You could certainly use any kind of a quilting pencil or chalk, something more acceptable than a Bic gel pen. But that does give me an idea where I want to stop. So I'm just going to go to that place.
These little stacks look like coral. They're not standing up to it.
Are you missing a bead in the stack?
No, I've got 3,
Okay.
but I've only got 3, and I'm not really doing anything that's final. I'm just trying to do some of the stitches and techniques as we're going along.
Oh,
So
okay.
I've done one. I don't like the colors of the bead, so it's going to come apart.
Okay. So you're doing a sampler.
Okay.
Yeah, you're doing a sampler.
You can
Okay.
call, you can call it that.
Yeah. So I've gone as far as I want to go. I'm going to I'm going to come back up. Really close to my previous bead, because that's where I want this to go. And I'm going to add my dagger, making sure that the side I want up is up, because this one does have 2 colors. And I'm going to put it right where I want it. And just like in the back stitches, I'm going to go straight back down, get that bead in place, straight back down. Like that. If I felt it was insecure or too loose, then what I can do is come back up the other side and go through that bead again, which is what I'm going to do right now. Okay. And I'm going to go straight back down. So I've added that bead. Now I am going to put a space in there. I'm going to actually add, where did those flowers go? Because that was part of my original idea. Okay, flowers, where did you go? They're probably sitting right in front of me and I can't see them for looking. There they are. So I have these little tiny flowers. Okay, so to add something like a flower, it's another stack stitch. Okay, so I'm going to come up where I want that flower to be, right like that. Okay. I'm going to add the flower going in from the bottom. It's going to sit just like that. Do I want it there yet? Nope, I don't. I'm going to change my mind. I will add it though in just a moment. I think I'm going to add another dagger. I want to, there's a bit of a space there, so I'm not for the flower, but I want the flower to sit on top. And then I've got that in place. I'm going to go right back down. Oh, you can't see that. Sorry, guys. There, move it up that way. So I've got my dagger in place. I am going to push it over where I want it to be and go straight back down. Okay, so it doesn't hurt to add a little bit of tension and make the bead be where you want it to be. Okay, and I'm going to go through that bead again. So I'm going to come up the other side right near the hole, not there. As I say, sometimes you have to take 2 or 3 stabs, right like that. Go through that again, tighten it right down. And right back down. Okay, now I'm going to add a flower between these 2 daggers. So I'm going to take my needle back up. And I'm come up right between the 2 of them, sort of centered. Now I'm going to pick up my flower from the bottom up. Let it rest there in between. And I need something to anchor it. So I'm going to pick up a couple of seed beads. I think I'll do a darker one here, just to give a little bit of a contrast, and go right back down the flower and the fiber, or in the foundation like that. And there it is. You may not want to pull too tight. You know, you don't, depending on how, if you want to distort it. But that's another stack stitch, just adding 2 beads to add the flower. Okay, so I'm going to come over here. I'm going to add a little bit more space, and I'm going to add another dagger. And I'm not going to worry if things are perfectly centered, because there's not a whole lot of things in life that are perfect. Picking up my dagger there. Come on, dagger. There we are. Bringing it down to my beadwork. Putting it in place where I want it to be, and going right back down. Like that. And daggers will move. Any of these sort of looser beads are going to move on you. I'm going to go back up, secure that again. Just get the needle in, there we are, in the right place. Go through that dagger a second time. Secure it nice and tight and right back down. And I'll add another flower. So I'm going to come back up between the 2 open daggers. Come up a few times to find the center, like that. Another flower, another dark bead. Bring it down to the beadwork. I'm going to miss the 11. I don't want to go through the 11 because that's my anchor. I'm going through the flower and back into the foundation. And there I've added another combination. So you can layer things like that. So when I've done this enough, probably to about here, I will continue with this and add more of these stacks. And then I think just to help break up some of the line work, I am going to add a little bit of a wave. And I don't think I'll get to that this week. But I will show you, I'll show you that more next week. I'll probably be working on a couple of different projects and going back and forth. Okay, so we still have time though. So I'm just going to add another dagger. And yes, I can vary the amount. I can sort of see what the flower is doing and moving things out. And I can compensate for any spacing it wants to do. So there we go, right back up. I'm going to add another dagger. I'll do the shiny side out. Put it in place. Where am I here?
Have you used different threads? And if so, which do you find better?
I like any of the Japanese. I'm using the Toho on this. It stands up really well. The Miyuki stands up very well as also. So that the two brands of thread, the KO sometimes shreds a little bit, but most of my stuff is done with either 1G or the Miyuki. So yeah, they both seem to have a little bit of a bonding on them.
Oh,
Yeah, so that they stick together. They don't fray at all. So, and both of them come in a huge variety of colors. So that has got one loop. I would definitely not use a sewing thread for this. In spite of, I mean, basically we are doing hand sewing, but the beads are still made out of glass. And you never know whether or not the glass beads have a rough finish.
right.
So, you want something that's not going to snag or cut easily on the beads. Okay, so I've added another one there. And as you can see, the flowers actually hide. So if it's not perfect, you can't see it. So I'm just going to come back up through between the beads here. Another flower. Another dark bead for the center. And secure that on it. There. So instead of a center dagger, I've got a center flower, but that's okay. I can live with that. I'm quite happy with that. So I'm going to do another dagger. And again, I'm moving it over so that there's space. I think the hardest part of all this is manipulating the beads so that they lay the way that you want them to.
Mm.
There we go. Okay. And I'm physically holding this in place so that when I go down, it is exactly where I want it to be. And if you find, I think that's a little too close, I take my needle off and just pull it back. So when you have layers of beads like the flowers and the daggers here, you can, it gets a little bit more intuitive, and you don't worry about it being so exact because the layers hide a multitude of sins. Okay, so I'll move it there, come straight back down like that. Hold. Okay, and then go through that dagger again just to make sure it stays where I want it to stay. So some people I haven't heard from today. Elena, how are you doing?
Hi. I got so many people wanting the Christmas trees, but that's all I've been doing. Yeah, it's fun. I really enjoy it.
I'm glad. I'm glad. So yeah, no, when your friends discover what you can do. So.
Also,
okay.
My mother-in-law visited my craft studio, and she was like, "Oh, you make all this stuff." So she took more stuff.
Okay.
Now I'm short the bracelet, so but I really actually wanted to keep for myself.
Uh-huh.
So I'm gonna have to make a new one.
Good.
She really liked the one with the shaggy loops.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like obsessed with it now. She's like, I'm looking at it all the time. It's so cool. So yeah, this design really impressed her.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm really glad. Okay, so Leslie has asked me a question here. I don't know, Leslie, if you're still on. How to put small beads on string when you have poor eyesight? Oh, a good light. Definitely, Leslie, you want a bright, bright light.
I have one behind me, but it stands on the floor though.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have, can you get a task light that sits right above your beadwork?
It's a hard one to get.
Yeah, what would be the best place to look?
Actually, any of the student lamps that you can attach maybe to a corner of a table or that will sit on a table, and then have a bright enough wattage that gives good light.
I just ordered a desk lamp for my godson for Christmas from Amazon. They have quite a good selection that either just sit on the desk or table, or they attach to it, and they have different quality of lights. You need to look through them, but there's quite a selection.
Yeah, yeah. The LED lights are not bad. They've
Yeah.
warmed up quite a bit.
That's in fact what I ordered for him, and it has a USB port and the wireless charger port, and it does everything but dance.
Yeah, they work really well. The other thing that you can do, what size string are you using?
Do you know what size string you're using?
It's light blue.
Okay, is it a string or a cord?
Yeah, it's a string.
It's a
Yeah.
string. Okay, so what you could also use is something called a large hole needle.
I don't know I had that.
Yeah, no, they've got, so on my screen here, I've got, these are needles. Okay, so they're easy to thread. So for example, if I had, let me grab a piece of thread here. Where did my thread go? Let me grab another piece of thread. There we go.
This one, big eye needle. Big eye needle, called big eye needle, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and they work really well.
Yes.
And so how these big eye needles work?
Well,
This one,
like that.
yeah, you can get them at Bead Effects. So they come, this is a very large one. Or you can get a smaller one, whatever you're more comfortable using. And your thread just goes through like that. And you just bring it down. So that's ready to use. And then depending on the size of your bead, you just simply pick them up like that. You know, these are very small beads, but you can use them for larger beads as well. And the big eye needles are thin enough that, you know, you can easily move things onto your thread.
Would you be interested in getting one of those?
So what the package looks like.
For the Thursday worker, so she knows.
Okay.
To shop.
So that's what the package looks like.
I'll take a picture. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, great.
There's there's a trick that you can use.
Oh, hold on. I think Marcia just wants to share something. Go ahead.
This is, mind you, tricks for threading a sewing machine needle, which is vertical, so it's a little bit different. But one thing you can do is put a white card behind your needle so that the hole is more evident. And one more other thing you can do is cut your thread on an angle. It doesn't seem like it's very much of an angle, but that little point helps it get through the needle.
Yeah. No, that's good. And sometimes a little bit of, if your thread keeps fraying, use a little bit of beeswax or something like that, and that'll help keep all those fibers together as well. Okay, so you're welcome. Okay, so I'm going to, I think one more here just to balance it. So a little bit more space.
Then you'll have even numbers.
And then one more. Okay, so straight back down there. And I'll just go through this again to secure it.
Just while you're doing that, the store in Newmarket.
Yep.
Is that comparable to Beat FX?
Yes. Yeah.
So it may be worth the drive just to see what they've got different.
Yep. Yeah, and every store has different things. I mean, both Bead Effects and that Bead Lady specialize in small seed beads. They also have a good selection of stone. They also have some other things like resin beads and stuff like that that I don't see a lot of in other places. So yeah, each store has its own stuff. And the woman who, as I say, her name was Kathy. Her husband is now running the store. Kathy passed away a few years back. So her patterns and all of her display items are still there. She did beautiful work.
Bead Lady has very good collection in everything. It's very good.
Yeah, you were up
Yeah.
there.
Yes, once it was very nice. Ladies so cooperative also.
Yes, yeah, they're good. I've been teaching for them for a while now too, virtually.
And she knows you. When I
Yes.
show her my things, what I want, she asked me that you are a PAM student. I said yes.
Yep. Yeah, I teach up there as well. So there is where I'm at so far. I'm happy with that. And so now I'm just going to continue coming around to the other side here. Like that, and just continue to stack all the way around. Now I'm going to let this thread hang because I want to show you what I'm going to do here. Okay, so let me grab another thread. Actually, I can use the thread from this other piece that I demoed. Okay. So let me just add this thread to here. I almost did a spit and twist. Okay, so. Okay, so I've started another thread. Typically I would have gone all the way around and then started this, but so here's my other thread. I'm going to go back up, try to stab my way through 2 of these beads. There, I managed to do it. You get used to this after a while. So I've gone up the 2 beads of this last stack, and I'm going to go through that top seed bead that's currently laying on its side. I want to create a bit of a wave here. So I'm going to join these, and I'm going to pull out another couple of colors of beads just to get things interesting. So this is a little bit more blue. That's going to pick up a little bit more blue in the stone. And I've got the sea foam. So I think I'll work with these 3 colors. Okay. So my thread is currently exiting one of the stacks and through the top bead. I'm going to add just a couple of beads. Doesn't matter what colors. And I'm going to go through the top bead of the next stack. And I'm going to add just maybe 2 beads, sometimes maybe 1 or 3. And as I do it, it's going to start ruffling. And you can use any colors of beads. And what you're going to get is this appearance of something a lot more there.
So you're essentially taking a bunch of beads and making a loop when you put it back in.
No, I'm moving along the stack.
Oh.
So I'm going stack to stack. So
Okay.
there I've added 3 beads, gone into that stack. I'm going to pick up just a couple. I don't want them to create a huge amount of wave. Get this positioned. So I'm coming out of this stack, I'm going into the next stack. So I'm moving along all the way through and creating this sort of ridgy wave. If I don't want it to wave too much, I just simply go into it without adding a bead. There we go. And this is where you just have to make sure your thread is not wrapping around anything, that you're getting a good connection there. So I'm literally going stack to stack. And what that's creating is this sort of movement and ripple effect. Let's add a couple to this one now, into the next one. And you can start bringing in all kinds of colors. I'm picking colors that go with my stone, a lot of those turquoises and blues there. So you can see it's getting.
Your needle is going through every like every stack.
I'm going through the top bead, the one
Okay.
yeah. So if I look at it on the side,
Okay.
I'm going through only the top beads.
Okay.
Okay.
You're
So
surfing the top.
I'm sorry?
You're surfing the top bead.
I'm surfing the top bead. Thank you.
Sorry.
No,
The colors
that's a
you're
good way of
using
doing
look
it.
like oceans.
Yeah. So I'm just literally going bead to bead. Let me put this so you can see it in the camera. So I'm coming out of that one. Let's see there. I'm going into the next one. So I'm literally just coasting along the top. That's all. And what it's doing is just creating this movement. And a layer really. It's just like here. I will do another row of beadwork just around the edge here. And it's just adding some movement. So if you like that movement, go ahead and do that. You can also just, you can leave the stacks as is and let them be. But it's another option.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
The duties that you have on the bottom there, the daggers.
Yep.
Are they eventually, like once you've finished embroidery, going to all kind of be symmetrical?
Nope, probably not. I might be able to actually, I can
like, is it your intention that you want them symmetrical? I guess is like I have my creative, what exists in my creative side of my brain is very symmetrical. I have problem. I struggle with the asymmetrical. So that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah. They're actually pretty symmetrical now. This one is out a little further, but these 3, these are reminding me right now of poppies.
Yes.
Except that they're not red. So these are symmetrical, and they're forcing the daggers to sort of sit angular like that. And I could come back later and just, use a needle and thread underneath it and secure it in the way I want them to.
I guess that's what I'm looking for. Is
Yeah.
there a way to force
I
it
could
to do what you want?
Yeah, I would try and put a thread underneath it, to force it. That's hidden. The other thing you could do, if it was really, really important, is use a little bit of glue on a toothpick and get it in there and force it to sit where you want it. But I plan to do a couple more in rows of beads and put a couple more beads in there. I'm not sure how yet, but that's sort of the outside plan.
Like the daggers or
The daggers.
just
No, adding some seed beads.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see. Who knows? I don't know. It hasn't told me what it wants yet. So,
Okay. See, nothing like that, that sort of thing doesn't talk to me.
but that's
I can
okay.
follow a pattern and I can, I'm fairly good at mixing colors
Yep.
and blending colors and that. But just to sit with a blank page, like what you've just done and create that I struggle with that. I really do.
And that's okay. That's, you know, you can get inspiration from a lot of places. I'm
great
not
at
sure I
copying.
like this, to be honest. I'm not sure I like that. It's a little too angular for what I wanted. So I may go back, and this is how easy it is to change. I take my needle off and I can start undoing it. And if I say, I don't really like that, I can take it all the way back and just let those be the way they are.
So Pam, I'm gonna have to go now. I'll
Okay.
see you next week.
Okay, sounds good. And we'll continue to work on this.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
Thank you very much. It's good.
You're
I like
welcome.
it.
Okay, take care. It is 2 o'clock, so I won't keep you all day. What I'll do is I'll probably start a couple more pieces and talk a little bit more, but there will be a piece anyways. It might be this one where I will take it through to the end and add the, so you see how to add the backing and the edging. All right. So I'm just going to turn off the camera here, stop recording.